Welcome to another episode of DD on the Spot. As always, I'm your host, Ryan Johnson. Before I get to our guests here today, I'd like to remind everyone that if you enjoy this content, give a like and subscribe down below. We greatly appreciate it. We have Chyanne Jacomini on the podcast. She's the owner and CEO of Shy by She. She's also a member of Team NJFF. She's a future IFBB Bikini Pro, and she's coming to us all the way from the City of Angels that is Los Angeles. But most importantly, she's our current guest. Chyanne, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Ryan. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. So why don't you give us a little bit of a backstory on what inspired you to adapt that healthy and fit lifestyle?
Well, honestly, giving birth to my son is the answer. Once I gave birth to him, I've always been an athlete and I've always been, in pretty decent shape. And then obviously going through those changes with pregnancy and giving birth, it just, once I had my son and about 4 months afterwards, I just didn't feel really good at all. And so, I decided to get in the gym because I've never been in the gym before as far as lifting weights. And, I had a friend who was competing at the time and she was a figure competitor. And I didn't really want to get to her, her muscle,
Yeah.
but I wanted to get really toned and fit. I wanted to get in the best shape of my life is exactly what I told my sister. And so, I had a few people kind of help me get into it. And then I did a 12-week prep. And I stepped on stage for the first time. I took third place and, it was incredible. I just absolutely loved it. And, the stage part of it was fun for me because I had done like runway modeling before. So that kind of took me back to that part of.
Yeah, I kind of got that idea when I first saw you. I was like, yeah, she's probably a model before this.
I didn't do too much, but I did a little bit, but it was fun for me. So that's it. The stage took me back to that place. So now I call the stage my playground because it's just something fun for me. And, people think I'm crazy because I do, like 12 weeks of clean eating and hardcore lifting and, in and out of the gym and for 10 seconds on stage. But,
Absolutely.
now it is my passion. It's my outlet. So
Absolutely.
It's all fun for me.
Yeah, and I always like to ask, or make the comparison where if you were to go into a gym with 100 people, there's 100 different ways as to how they got into shape, whether it be from their diet, their nutrition, how many reps they do, what exercise they do. There are so many little things that add up to a way of how a person looks. Was that hard for you starting out to figure out what worked best specifically for you? Because like I say, like if you were to go up and walk up to a person and say like, hey, do you have any tips or advice? The advice that they may give you might work great for them, but it might not work as great for you.
That's a great question. I had the guidance on just starting with the basics, right? And I think that was a great start for me because it kind of gave me a good platform to work from. Prior to starting working out, I was a vegan for about 12 years. So I know my body really, really well. And even going through pregnancy and all the hormonal changes, I knew exactly when my body snapped out of, the pregnancy mode. So knowing my body has really helped because going into the training part of it, I knew exactly what was changing with my body along the way. It was extremely hard because there was times where I just wanted to throw in the towel, but because I wasn't getting, the results that I was expecting from all the time that I was putting in. But I also had to keep in mind that, I was coming off of giving birth. So the body was going to take a little bit more to get those changes I was expecting. So, having that platform to work from just kind of really helped me. And I think everybody should start with the basics.
Absolutely. Like I always say, it's one of those things, especially with my generation or the generation that we are in, it's always, I want it now or I want it yesterday, basically, where they don't realize it's going to take so much time, especially for the healthy and fit changes. I always like to make the comparison, like if you're an alcoholic versus if you're someone who's, overweight. An alcoholic, they go one day without drinking and they're already on their way. A person who works out one day and looks in the mirror, they're not going to see any difference. They're going to be like, oh, well, nothing really changed. So it's one of those things where it's going to take, a lot of people at least 6 months to at least, get really noticeable. Unless you're like one of those people that weighs like 400 pounds, then obviously, you go a couple weeks and you're going to see, some changes. But your body's going to thank you so much once you finally start seeing those changes because it can get addictive. And then you're just like, hey, I want to keep going with this, which is kind of what happened to me. Like I was always really, really skinny because I was a pitcher. So I never really had, a lot of muscle, but I was always one of those guys that thought they were, in great shape because they had a six pack just because they were like one of those skinny people that just had it. I was one of those guys. But yeah, once I started like putting on the muscle, I was like, oh yeah, this is great. So yeah, I just cannot say enough, when you're going to the gym for the first time, just you got to find out what works best for you. And it's a lot of it is trial and error too, but just go with it. But at what point in your journey did you realize that, hey, I really want to compete. I really want to do a show? How long into your journey before you kind of decided that?
Well, I did my first show, right? And then I was like, well, I don't really have anything to compare it to. Like, I don't know if I like this or not.
Mhm.
Like, yeah, I like the competitive part of it as far as like competing with myself and, getting these results and sticking with it type of thing. So I was like, well, let me do another show. And then I can kind of see like, do I like it? Do I not? And the next show I did was going into my birthday, so it was really going to be a challenge, because I'm used to celebrating and
Mhm.
eating whatever and whatnot. So I did another show about 4 weeks later, and it was I had even better results, obviously,
Mhm.
with clean eating and continuous prep. That's the goal every time, is to get better results. So I did, and I ended up placing third place in that show as well. Bigger group of girls. So it for me, it was like I wanted to keep doing it just to see where I can take my body.
Mhm.
Because at that point, during my second show, I was already in better shape than I was before I got pregnant.
Mhm.
So, I had already hit that goal, but I wanted to take it even further.
Yep.
So I knew that if I wanted to do that, competing was just the fun part of it, but the training was going to get me there, the training and the eating. So
So what was your diet like before? I mean, even before you had your son, what was your diet like? And how, I mean, what were some strategies that you used in order to adapt? Because I mean, that's probably just a huge adaptation going from what you had before to just the clean eating. I mean, that's just so hard on people. How was that process like for you?
well, as I mentioned before, I was a vegan 12
Hmm.
years, and that was before I started competing.
Hmm.
So my huge concern going into competition mode is I wasn't going to do a vegan
Yep.
bodybuilding regimen. So my huge concern was my body going to adapt to the meats,
Hmm.
because I hadn't eaten meats for 12 years.
Yep.
So I decided for myself that I was only going to do chicken and turkey and fish,
Hmm.
because I know like my body just absolutely rejects the beef and pork. So I mean, we typically don't eat pork on prep anyways,
Yeah.
but so I started off with the chicken, and everything was going smooth, and I added in the turkey and the fish, and thankfully, I didn't have any problems adjusting from not eating meat to now eating meat. And I was pretty shocked,
Hmm.
because there were some other foods before competing that I would try, just wouldn't sit well with me. And I don't have like a super sensitive body or anything. It's just when you go from eating super clean and then you start putting all the dirty stuff in, like you could tell the difference right away.
Yeah. I gotta ask, what is that like after not going without eating meat for 12 years? What was that like the first time having meat then for the first time after that long experience?
It was kind of like I had to make a decision. I'm either
Hmm.
going to do this or I'm not. And if
Hmm.
I'm not, then I have to figure out how I'm going to do it the vegan way,
Hmm.
right? And I know that there's vegan bodybuilders out there, and I know that it can be done, but the time and the effort and the amount of foods that has to go into it
Well, and
is
it's a
just,
lot more expensive too.
yes. So I just said, you know what, if I'm going to do it this way, then I'm going to have to suck it up and do whatever it takes.
Hmm. Yep.
So, eating the chicken, it wasn't like, I liked chicken before. So it wasn't that it was gross or anything like that. It was just, for me, the concern was just more of the body
Yep.
processing it. So, like, I enjoy chicken, I enjoy fish, I enjoy turkey, like, I don't mind beef. It doesn't sit well with me. So,
So, how did you adjust? Was there any adjustments that you had to make mentally for your first prep? Because, like I always like to say, when you're getting healthy and in shape, that's hard enough in and of itself on you. But when you go into prep and, like you said, that clean eating, and you really just notch your training up to a whole different level, was that a struggle for you? And how'd you sort of deal with that?
honestly, it was more of a mental
Hmm.
adjustment than it was for the physical aspect for me. And, having a newborn, being a first time mom, dealing with all those things on top of having a full time job and
Hmm.
then doing the prep, it was definitely a mental adjustment. It took me about 2 years to actually get that balance, that I desired. In the beginning, I didn't have that balance. So, the mental part of it for me came with working out so much, putting in so much time and not seeing results. Like 3 weeks before going on stage for the first time, I told the person who was helping me at the time, I was like, I'm ready to quit. Like, I'm putting in all this work. I don't see any result. And, it's not worth it. Like, why am I doing this? And so it's so funny because just a week later, it all started coming together. Started seeing my abs,
Hmm.
everything started start getting little cuts,
Mm-hmm.
seeing little muscles. I was like, wait, I didn't know I
Yep.
had that muscle. Where'd
Mm-hmm.
that come from? So I'm glad I stuck with it because I honestly was just ready to quit. Like I
Yeah.
was just ready to be like, I'll just take care of my son and I'll eat whatever I'll continue to
Mm-hmm.
work out, but I'll just like eating like this because I had never eaten that clean
Yeah.
before, like that strict of a
Mm-hmm.
regimen. Same thing for 12 weeks. You know what I mean? I was just like, I can do this on my own. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
don't need anybody to tell me how to do this or whatever. So I had to kind of put my ego to the side and put, the mental stress, throw that out the window and just, follow through with it. And I'm not a quitter. So, I told myself, let me just give this first prep my best shot and finish it out regardless of how I feel.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll know at the end of that prep, I did it. I did it to the best of my ability, and I can decide if I like it or if I don't. And if I don't, hey, at least I gave it my best shot.
Absolutely, and that's just a great attitude to have. And I gotta say, even the adjustment to the diet was a hard thing for me because when I was in college, I had so much free time that I could go to the gym and work out for like 2.5 hours a day. So I could literally eat whatever I want because I was just burning off so many calories. But then
Yeah.
once I got home after I graduated, it was a really big adjustment for me. So yeah, I completely understand where you just feel like, oh my God, this bland chicken again or this bland rice again. It's like I can't have this now anymore. So, but now now I've found a way to kind of balance it where I'll have like a Five Guys burger, like every week or something like that, just to sort of offset everything. But as you
Yeah.
can see myself, I'm a very pale person individual. I mean, I'm from the Midwest, and we have a lot of pale people here. So, what was that experience like putting that tan on for the first time? Because I've never experienced that. I mean, I'm one of those people where I got to wear so much sunscreen if I have any skin out in the sunlight, regardless of anything, kind of like a vampire. But what was that like putting that tan on for the first time and seeing, like you said before, like even before in your prep, you saw like muscles pop and you saw things that you never even thought that you ever had. But what was that experience like when you put that tan on?
Yeah, honestly, I'm not as pale as you, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm light skinned.
I'm like reflecting off the camera, basically.
I tan very well naturally. So I kind of had like a base tan going into the show. And then putting on that spray tan for the first time was kind of like, ugh, this feels, gross and it stinks and, it was disgusting. But after putting it on and then, seeing in the lights and everything coming together, like it just showed, it's true. This is why we tan because it brings out those fine lines in the body and on stage they just pop.
Mm-hmm.
So when I saw my pictures, I was like, I didn't know I looked like that. Like, you just go through the motions and take pictures backstage. But when you actually get on stage and then see those professional photos taken, it's like, whoa, okay. I didn't know I looked like
Yeah,
that.
I mean, yeah, that's awesome. And like, I mean, we have so many people. They're just like, yeah, I was in a lot better shape than I thought I was once I put that on. So it's just one of those huge things too. But one of the questions I also love to ask is, if you were to poll like the general population of people that were willing to go up on stage and basically strut their stuff and basically in like a bikini, you'd get a very low percentage of people that would be willing to do that. Did you ever have to like build up any courage to do this, or was it like a lot of other people that we have when we're like, I've worked my butt off for this, I'm just going to show it off? What was your mental preparation like for that? Was that any worry at all?
Honestly, going on stage was a little nerve wracking considering it was my first time, right? Now it's like now when I go to my competitions, I'm just like I'm so quiet backstage. It's because it's just my way to get ready to prep for stage. Like I get anxious to get on stage. Like I want to get on stage like now. I don't want to wait. I don't want to do. I just want to get on stage. Give me my number and let me go on the stage. I mean, I know there's a process for everything, but the first time being on stage, I was a little nervous, but I was looking forward to it because I was, like I said, I was in the limelight before with runway modeling and stuff like that. So I just kind of like, it reminded me of that, so to speak, because of the stage lights, the crowd, the stage, the platform, everything. So I was looking forward to that aspect of it. I was just a little nervous only because I was like, is my suit right? Is it on correct? And, like, is my hair good? What about my makeup?
Yep.
Because they judge everything from head to toe.
Yes.
And so it was more, did I look the part? Am I what the judges want? So, but other than that, once I got past the first show, I was like, okay, time to get on stage. Let's go.
So what was it like wearing those high heels? Was that a difficult struggle for you?
Oh, absolutely not. I wear heels a lot, especially when I was working for my corporate job. I wore heels every day, 8 hours a day, 9 hours a day. So being in heels is all I knew. So that had I just got to wear heels with an extra sparkle to it.
Yeah.
That was fun.
I mean, you're one of the first few that like wears heels all the time because we've had so many people that are like, yeah, wearing the heels. Because my second health and fitness guest was the tallest bikini competitor, and then she went into physique, but the tallest competitor for women ever. She was 6'3", and so in those heels, she was like 6'8". So I was like, okay, yeah, that must be
Wow.
that because I'm 6'3" myself. So I was like, me in heels, that would be just a disaster. And the funny thing is, she lives like 5 minutes away from me, and I had no idea at all. And then she's like, oh, you're from Bloomington. And I was like, oh yeah. And she's like, oh, I'm from so and so. And I was like, oh, that's like 5 minutes away. So that was a really funny thing. But yeah, just having, because there's so many things with the heels. Because I always like to say, if you want to make a lot of money in bodybuilding, or if they ever want to make more money, just have those pro guys wear those heels and walk out. That would break the internet. I would love to see those guys like try to do that. That would be the funniest thing ever to see them.
That would be hilarious.
Oh, absolutely. I was like, see Ronnie Coleman or any one of those guys, or like Jay Cutler walk out on those high heels. That would be, that would pay. That would be the one thing I would pay so much money to see. Absolutely. But now, what is your go-to post-show meal?
Post-show meal?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. So for about 5 shows straight, my post-show meal was BJ's. Mm-hmm. And my appetizer was a Pizookie, the cookie with the ice cream. Gotta have the pizza and a burger. So I go ham when I go to my post-show meal. I just finished my show in Miami a couple weekends ago, and we went to a place called Big Pink.
Ooh. That just sounds good. That just sounds good in and of itself.
It was incredible. I started off with deep fried Oreos and ice cream and a chocolate banana peanut butter sundae, or shake. It was a shake.
My mouth is already starting to water.
Yeah. I actually posted it on my storyboard a couple of days ago, and I followed that with chicken and waffles, and then I had a Wagyu burger with fries, and then I had a chili cheese steak pizza.
What were you feeling like that night? Were you just completely full? Did you get sick?
My stomach was hurting. I couldn't go to sleep because my tummy was upset.
Oh yeah.
I just wanted to drink more water because after being dehydrated, I just wanted water, and I couldn't drink water because I didn't have any room for water.
Yeah.
So I had to actually do some exercises.
Oh wow.
For everything to like settle down and for me to be able to go to sleep that night.
Did you do like crunches or something?
I do like jump squats.
Oh, I was gonna say if you did crunches, that would be like the most painful crunches of all time if you tried to do that then with a full stomach.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I think honestly, I think I tried, but I was like, I'm not doing no. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I tried that like 2 Thanksgivings ago. I tried to do a crunch after I had filled myself up for Thanksgiving meal, and I was like, yeah, this isn't happening. We're done here. So yeah, absolutely. But now, probably the most important question that I love to ask is, I get so many times where people come up to me, or some of my friends who watch this podcast too, and they say, some of the people that you have on, they must be jacked and ripped 365 days out of the year, and they don't realize that when you sort of manipulate your body through all of the dieting and all the exercising, it's not a sustainable look when you walk on that stage in the show. Like, you're not going to look that great 365 days out of the year. You're going to put on, regardless, especially for women too. For guys, they can maybe maintain it a little bit longer, but they're going to put on weight eventually. But especially for women, you are going to put on a couple of pounds after the show. Or was that hard for you to adjust to mentally, just realizing, hey, I've worked my butt off for these 12 months, or these 12 weeks, but I am going to put on some weight afterwards. Was that a hard adjustment for you?
Yeah, at first it was very hard for me to adjust, typically because like before getting on stage, I'm on the scale a lot, just because, everything is in particulars. And so I've finally come to the point to where, I'm just like, after I get off stage, the scale is not in place. Like, I don't get on the scale because it messes with you. Mm-hmm. And so, in the middle, I've done about, 10, 15 shows. And in the middle of those shows, there was a point where I was like, okay, I'm super shredded. I had my cheat meal, and now it's like, what's next? And then throughout that process, I kept getting on the scale, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I just gained 10 pounds in one day. Like, what's going on? And obviously, when you lose that water weight, and you drink the water, you eat the food, and it goes right back on. Mm-hmm. And so, I had to learn, like, it's okay. Mm-hmm. It's okay as long as I get back to, eating fairly clean. It doesn't have to be strict, but it's just keeping it clean. And honestly, that's like the toughest thing that I had to deal with going throughout my show preps is finding that balance,
Yeah.
having, allowing myself at least a cheap meal a week and then, keeping it clean for the rest of the days. And
Yeah.
I found my balance. So
Yeah, that's just so important to is finding your balance. That's another thing that I love to talk about. But now, you're a mom, and like I always like to say, being a mom, that's a full-time job in and of itself. I mean, just having to take care and just all the stuff that moms do. How are you able to find time to still fit in the gym? Because I mean, it's one of those things where you just think of, moms, and it's always, you always got to watch over the kid, especially having a younger kid too, who's not like in school or anything. What are some ways that you use to just get into that, still be able to get those workouts in? Because I mean, just for me, that would be like, and plus you said like you have your own company too. I mean, just, you must have some of the best time management of all time then.
yeah, well, it's been a struggle. Like I'm not going to sit here and say, yeah, everything's, great. I mean, everything is wonderful now. Like I said, I found that balance. But when my son was smaller, this little boy he's like my little ride or die.
Yeah.
I like to call him that because, I take him with me everywhere. And, he was old enough to go into the gym with me, to go into the daycare and that kind of stuff. So anytime I'd go work out, he'd go to the daycare. And then, I mean, if you look at my transformation, you see some of my videos from before, there's times where I couldn't go to the gym and I would just work out at home and I would use him as my weight. And he absolutely loved it, So we would do like push-ups, sit-ups, squats, and whatnot. And I would just incorporate him in my workouts, and he loves it. And if you meet him today, he'll just like pop out his arm. He's like, "I'm strong." And I'm just like, "Oh, calm down." But yeah, no, he's been wonderful on balancing the mom aspect of it. Honestly, it's brought joy to my heart because I've gotten to share this experience with him, and then growing with him as well. And, teaching him about, living a healthy life, so to speak.
Well, absolutely. And that leads me into my next question is like, how important is it for you to also, have that healthy image just for your son? Because like I said, the obesity crisis, I mean, it's getting bad now. I mean, how important is that for you too, to also portray that healthy and positive image for him, just so that he can pick up those healthy eating habits so that he won't have to deal with that?
It's incredibly important. I think for myself, I want to be as healthy as I can be for my family. Because if I'm healthy, I'm giving them my best version of me, right? And so if I'm giving them my best, then there's no reason why they can't be their best. So, with my son growing up in, around being healthy, like I allow him to have like a sucker or, I never allow him soda, but he asked for it. But I allow him little things here and there, you know what I mean? Just so he can, because when I grew up, my parents didn't really allow me to eat junk food. So when I got to school, I gained about 25 pounds because I had that freedom. I had that freedom to get whatever I wanted. They had donuts, they had Dr. Peppers, which was my favorite. So they had anything in sight that I had the freedom to eat. And because I didn't get it, I just gorged. So, I don't want my son to go through that. I want him to be able to be like, oh, I know what that is. I know what that tastes like. But, this is better choice.
Yeah.
So it's incredibly important for me to be healthy for my family and then for them to be healthy as well.
Absolutely. And, I just got to say, when your son, if he grows up and he watches this, I'll say Mountain Dew. If you're going to drink any soda, go for Mountain Dew. Okay. That's the one thing. That's the one thing that I'll recommend. So, I mean, absolutely. And you started your own business, Shy by She. Could you tell us a little bit about that and what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. We're actually getting started. My original company was called ChyanneJacomini.com, and it was my online business, and it was acquired by the She Beverage Company.
Oh, wow.
And they're located in Lancaster. So within the She Beverage Company, I'm a subsidiary of that brand. So Shy by She, we're going to have some products coming out really, really soon. Hopefully after, the beginning of the year, we'll be able to launch. But we're getting everything in order now. We're going to come out with a cosmetic line, skincare line, apparel line, and then we have some other things lined up as well. So I'm really looking forward to that and working with Lupe. She's the CEO of She, and Tony Farmer is the president of She.
That's awesome. So definitely let us know. And then I'd love to give you a shout out and a plug on here. I mean, I love promoting all the guests that we have on. That's why, I love doing this. I love just hearing people's stories and talking to them. So definitely let us know. And everyone, I recommend all that. I'll leave links to all your stuff absolutely, down below. But two of my favorite questions that I love to ask are, one of the things that I discovered when I started, working out and getting a lot bigger and stronger in high school is that, first of all, you're going to get asked to move a lot of people's furniture. You're going to get asked to open a lot of pickle jars. I mean, I'm still at home with my parents for the next few months before I move out. So every time they come home with groceries, I basically have to lift the car into the driveway and get all the groceries. So has that been a similar experience with you? Just because people see that you work out and that you are big and strong, do people all of a sudden then just assume that they can do favors, or like friends or family just ask you to like do stuff for them?
It's funny. I've always been like the assertive, like, let me do this, or I got this, or I can handle this. I'm that mom that has like 1,000 bags of groceries in the car, and I refuse to take multiple trips, so I get it all in one shot. So, ever since I've been, working out and training, like, they make the comments and stuff like that. But, I'm not like a super big girl.
Yeah.
So it's not like I have like all these big muscles and it's like macho and let me carry this for you and, let me open this for you. It's not even like that. I love being in the kitchen. I'm assertive, so I do all that stuff anyways. But it's just like, I get the little comments saying that, oh, you work out now. No.
Yeah. No, yeah, absolutely. So, and probably I'm 6'3" also myself, so that doesn't really help me. So when people see me, I mean, I could be in a sweater and they wouldn't be able to see my muscles, and they'd be like, okay, this guy can help me move stuff. So like literally last summer, almost every other weekend, I'd get a friend that would call and be like, hey, Ryan, can you help me move my couch or my chair or whatever? And I always got to a point where I just told them, hey, as long as I get my workout in first, because I don't want to get tired from helping you move your stuff that I'm not able to work out. So, but I do realize that, that they recognize and appreciate sort of like the hard work that I put in. So it's gotten to a point where I've accepted it. But now probably my favorite question to ask, and again, this is a multi-million-dollar idea for anyone out there, but when it comes to clothes for fit women, your clothing options can be limited. I always like to say, if you have really big shoulders, dresses sometimes aren't your best friend. Jeans are another thing that we hear of that can be really, really hard. What are some ways that you sort of compensate for the fact that your clothing options can be limited as opposed to someone else's?
Thankfully, I don't have that big of an issue.
Yeah.
I would say my biggest issue is my shoulders. I have really broad shoulders, so where I typically wear a small in my tops, and if it's a shirt that has sleeves or long sleeves, the line on the shoulders sits right on my collarbone. So I have that issue. That's my biggest issue I've had. So I have to buy some shirts a little bit bigger to fit my shoulders, and unfortunately they're a little bit bigger in other areas. So but other than that, like, I love tank tops. I work out in tank tops and I have no issues with those. So
yeah, absolutely. And I always say to anyone, it's a multi-million-dollar idea, so get on it. There's a lot of people that would be willing to buy it. Absolutely. And now, I mean, I had an older brother, like I said before we recorded this, I had an older brother that moved to LA, and one of the things he told me is that is like, you will see some of the most in shape people you have ever met in your life down there. Being that you're in LA and that it's it's sunny there all times of the year. Like, we always have that saying up here in the upper Midwest. We say, you only got to look good 6 months out of the year, because the other 6 months you're going to be in a sweater all the time. So it really doesn't matter. But do you ever feel that extra added pressure knowing that like Los Angeles is known for having, such great in shape people and having just all these great facilities to work out at, and it's, it's perfect weather to, show off all the time. Do you ever feel that extra added pressure to look good 365 days out of the year?
Being in LA, you do see a lot of fit people. You do see a lot of unfit people as well.
Yeah.
I don't have any pressures with living here, with the atmosphere and the people around me. I definitely don't have any pressures with that. Like, I don't let that affect me. I do what makes me happy, and, working out is my outlet. I love to train, and competing is just the fun aspect of it. So being in shape is not something I do for the sight of the public. I do it because that's what I feel best at, and that's what makes me happy.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's nice to see, it's nice to be in an area where there are other people who are really fit and healthy who can relate. And it is a competitive market here. But like I said, other than that is, I like to feel good, more so than anything.
Absolutely. And I was going to say, like, the only benefit here when you're wearing sweaters is that sometimes when you take your sweaters off, then people are like, oh, okay. So they kind of adds that surprise element. That's like the only positive thing that you have there, where people are like, oh, he does work out, or like, oh, she's really in really great shape when they like take the sweater off. So you're like, oh, okay. So yeah, that's about my only thing. But now we go to our audience favorite and my personal favorite part of the podcast, a little questionnaire. I'm going to ask Chyanne here about a dozen or so questions and see how she stacks up to all the other health and fitness guests that we've had on the show. So for our first question, what is your go-to workout song at the moment?
My go-to workout song is Tyga, Taste.
That's awesome. Now, I got to include this in the podcast because you're in LA, and this originally isn't a part of the questionnaire, but have you had any celebrity encounters or celebrity run-ins being in LA?
Yeah, actually. They're mostly athletes.
Hmm.
The gym that I train at it's a very well known gym, and athletes train there all the time. As a matter of fact, one of the Chicago Bulls players trains there. So just I see a lot of guys go through there, basketball players, so to
Yeah.
speak. So
That.
yeah, I've ran into a few people. I've done a little bit of acting, so
Mhm.
I've kind of been behind the scenes a
That's
little
awesome.
as well. So
That's awesome. I mean, when my brother was there, one of his bosses was doing like a charity event, and he went there and he got to meet like Robert Downey Jr. and a couple other celebrities. So I was like, yeah, that's just awesome. That's one of the reasons. I mean, I've never been to the West Coast. I've been to like every other area in the country besides Texas and the West Coast. So that's definitely where I want to go to and visit. But now going back to our question here, our second question: out of all the celebrities on the planet, if you could work out with any celebrity, who would it be?
oh, that's a good question. Honestly, I would say if I could work out with anybody, it'd probably be J Lo. And I
Ooh.
say that because she's inspired me in so many other ways other than just fitness.
Mhm.
But I'd like to see her workout regimen.
Oh yeah, absolutely. The only problem that I have, I mean, like me personally, I do like an Arnold or something like that, just because it's Arnold, and it's like, come on, you gotta do that. But like the one thing that I do, like my one pet peeve about a lot of these celebrities though, is that you'll see them on Instagram like posting these workouts where like, oh my god, getting ready for my movie role, and they're curling like 2 pound weights. And then like 6 weeks later they're like in like super lean shape, and it's like you're lying to the people about how you get those results. I mean, let's be honest, you're training heavy weights, and you're also doing like a super strict nutrition in order to get that look, especially for the guys that like really bulk out for these roles, but even for the women too, who like really lean out and develop a little bit of muscle. It's like you're not doing that training with 2 pounds. So it's just that's my one thing. But yeah, Arnold Schwarzenegger for me, absolutely. And thank you for saying someone other than Dwayne the Rock Johnson. You're gonna be like our 80th health and fitness guest when this gets uploaded. I swear to God. 70 of them out of the 80 have been Dwayne the Rock Johnson. It's gotten to a point where I
My
almost
favorite actor.
oh yeah, it's gotten to a point where I almost wanted to mention where I was like, okay, other than Dwayne the Rock Johnson, if there's a celebrity that you wanted, just because.
Right.
But yeah, I completely understand. I mean, we talk about like when people who need to get inspired and they're like, I don't have enough time in my schedule to fit it in, and people are always like, we all have the same 24 hours. I say BS. The only one person who has more than 25 has got to be Dwayne the Rock. He's got to have like 27 or 28. How he's able to get all of his movies done and still get in shape and just do all of the stuff that he does, I mean, he releases a movie like every 3 months. I have no idea how he does it, but it's just
Yeah.
yeah, he's definitely got the secret. So now, what is one item that you always need to have in your fridge?
In my fridge, egg whites.
Ooh. Yep, that is our second most popular answer behind chicken. We had a tofu on there, which was very interesting. But then another thing that really surprised me with bodybuilders that I had on, with the guys and with a lot of the girls, is mustard, because it's the one thing. I mean, it's like 0 calories, it's low in fat, it's like zero fat, so they just put it on their chicken just to give it a little bit of flavor. And I was like, well, you might want to rethink your life if you have to put mustard on your chicken in order to give it a little bit of flavor. But
Yeah,
yeah.
I'm such a mustard freak.
Oh yeah.
I'm glad you mentioned that. But I like
Mm.
stone ground mustard.
Ooh, yeah. Okay,
I
so
like the seeds.
yeah,
So
so believe it or not, like up until I was like 5, I really loved mustard, but then I do the turnover to ketchup. So now I'm ketchup on everything. I've never had mustard in the longest time. After I've been talking to all these people and they keep saying mustard, I'm going to try it eventually, but I just gotta work up the courage for it. I'm a picky eater, so I gotta really psych myself up for that. Absolutely. So
yeah, see, I like vinegar. So mustard has that vinegar
yeah.
base, so
Mhm.
it really gives it that zing.
Mhm.
And the reason why I have to have egg whites in my fridge is because it's so convenient. Like if I have chicken in my fridge, it has to be cooked. But if you have raw chicken in your fridge, you can't just go in there and grab that and eat it. But with egg whites, I can go in there and grab it and
Yep.
just drink out of the carton or whatever, like to get my protein in. So I say
Absolutely.
egg whites because it's the most convenient for me.
Oh yeah, for me it's rice, because I mean when I get home from work late in the night, I don't like to use the microwave because I don't want to wake my parents up or do anything like that. So I just turn the stove on really really light and just put some rice in there, and in about 10 minutes it's good to go. So that's my thing. But now, what is your favorite fashion trend of all time and least favorite fashion trend of all time?
Fashion trend. Hmm. My least my least favorite is when oh, that's a good question. I guess when girls like get really dolled up
Mm-hmm.
and then they throw on like some gym pants. Like they have a nice shirt on, nice hair and makeup, and then they throw on some gym pants.
Oh,
And sometimes it can work, depends on
yeah.
the gym pants. But when you know and can see that they're gym pants, it's like,
Or
no.
one of my things where I'm like, what are you doing? Is like when women are all dolled and maked up and then they go and work out, and it's like, what are you doing? You're gonna like smear it all. It's like, what are you doing? I mean, I know that a lot of people do it, but it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, if you know that you're gonna go to a place where you're gonna just sweat a lot and get all your workout in, it's like, I mean, it's great. It's good to, it's good eye candy for a lot of guys, but I mean, other than that, it's like, it's like, what are you doing? So,
see, and I'm not gonna lie, I'm that girl.
oh well, no, yeah, I completely no. Like being in LA, I can completely understand that, just because it's LA. But like when you're up here in Minnesota and you're like, it's gonna be -20 out in a couple of months, so it's like your makeup is gonna freeze to your face. So it's like that's not that's just a whole different. I mean, I have so many horror stories. I mean, I had one day. So this is a fun story about how cold it can get here. So I had one day when I was going to go to work. This was like 2 years ago. It was like -15 out. I went to go put my car in the ignition, and then when in the door so I can unlock it, and when I turned it, my key broke because it was that cold. The key broke, and then the part of it that was unbroke, or the part of it that snapped, got stuck inside the lock, so I couldn't unlock it, and I didn't have my spare key with me, so I had to call in. I had to call in for work, and it was. That's just one of the many stories about what it can do. So, I mean, like, my favorite fashion trend is flannel, and that's just because, it's something warm to wear in the winter, and it's just, I just absolutely love it. My least favorite is, like, Uggs. It's like, come on, people. You got to try a little bit harder.
If you're in LA, you'll see girls wear shorts with Uggs. And I just don't have that balance.
Yeah, I mean, that's like... Yeah, people. I mean, everyone I think should take at least one fashion class in high school, just where they're kind of taught like what is good to wear and what is not good to wear. Where like, yeah, come on, or fanny packs too. My dad used to have a fanny pack like back in the late '90s when I was really young. So that's another one where I was like, okay, you definitely back stuff. Oh well, yeah, and it's coming back too. That's the thing too. Well, guys like Hulk Hogan have been wearing them since like the '80s. So yeah, that's the whole thing. So now, what is the last TV show that you binge watched?
It's funny. I just binge watched Ballers with The Rock.
Yep, my older brother watches that. I have not seen it before, but I've heard so many good things about it, so I definitely got to look into it.
Yeah, it's definitely a good show. I was actually in one of the episodes.
What?
As a background actor.
Can we see you in it?
It hasn't aired yet, so I haven't saw myself.
Oh, you haven't seen yourself? But has the episode been released, or can we see it when it comes up, or?
Yeah, it should be coming up in the next release.
Okay, well, definitely let me know when that's on so that I can tell, because my older brother loves that show, and I was like, yeah, see one of those girls in the background there? Yeah, I had her on the podcast. No big deal. So, yeah, absolutely. So did you get to meet him at all, or was he in the scene that you were in?
No, actually wasn't in that scene. He wasn't in LA during that time, so unfortunately I didn't get to meet him.
Hey, well, I mean, that's just cool enough as it is, though, being on one of those shows. That's just awesome. And for me, the last TV show that I binge watched, I mean, I watch Game of Thrones all the time, and I've been kind of catching up on it again since it's been like a whole 2 years since they're going to release the last season. So that's mine. But what is your favorite TV show of all time?
I don't watch hardly any TV, so honestly, Ballers is the only thing I've really binge watched.
Oh, okay.
I watched a few episodes of The Doctor, which was incredibly interesting. So, between the two of those, that's pretty much all I've made time to watch for.
Okay. So now, what is a guilty pleasure movie that you enjoy?
Say it again.
What is a guilty pleasure movie that you enjoy?
I'm a Denzel Washington girl, so I love Man on Fire.
Ooh, that's a good one. Yeah.
And so watch that movie over and over again.
That is a good one. For mine, I mean, all my guy friends that are listening to this, close your ears for like the next 30 seconds, but The Princess Bride. That is my ultimate guilty pleasure movie. That's my ultimate date night movie. I mean, I was typing my thesis paper in college and that came on, so I had to stop my thesis paper for like 2 hours and watch it. I mean, I love that movie. I can quote most of it. I mean, it's one of those things where, I mean, okay, now all my guy friends, I mean, you can listen back on again. So, I mean, I'll never admit it in public, but on here, I will admit it. So now, yeah, absolutely. So now, what is one thing that you would change about the sport of bodybuilding if you had the all-knowing power to do so?
Honestly, the one thing I would change is just taking all the politics out of everything.
Yep.
Like, just let it be an honest sport. The people train their butts off, and it is what it is. Like, they have their figure, and they've worked hard for it. If they look the part, then give them the credit.
Absolutely.
If we could move all the politics out, I think it'd be an enjoyable sport for most.
Absolutely, and I always like to say, my vision for the future would be like maybe like in 10, 20 years where they just have like a machine just like scan the people and just like then the machine decides like who's the most proportionate, like who has the most mass. I mean, that's probably the one thing that they will probably end up doing, because it's like all these people, because there are so many times where, I mean, I haven't really been following bodybuilding that much, but except for like the last 2 years when I started getting into it a little bit more. And for the guys and the girls, there's so many competitions where you just look at them and you're like, yeah, that person should have won as opposed to that person, where it's all based on judgment and the politics too. Like you said, like some people are going to win before the show even starts just because of their name recognition, or a lot of the times too it's like who has the most followers that really helps with your placing too or whatever, and that's I mean, I could get into a whole podcast in and of itself on that, but that's definitely one of those things, yeah, that I would absolutely love to change. But now, if you could go back in time and talk to the 18-year-old version of yourself, what would be the best piece of advice you would give her?
Stop eating all that junk food. I mean, during that time I played basketball, so it's kind of like one of those things where
Mhm.
I was just like running so much
Mhm.
and, doing, so much cardio. Like it didn't really matter what I ate because I'd burn it off
Mhm.
anyways. But if I can only imagine if I would have ate healthy, how much better I could get into shapes, quicker.
Absolutely. So now, if someone were to walk up to you on the street or even in the gym and say like, "Oh my God, you look amazing. I want to sort of adapt a more healthy and fit lifestyle," what would be the best piece of advice you would give them in order for them to be successful?
Um, I I've been asked that question actually. I've been approached with that question many, many times, and honestly, it's all about committing yourself, not giving up, because it's easy to just say, yeah, I'm going to do this, I'm going to start this, and I'm going to do this, and get going, and then 2 weeks later, it's like fall off the train. Da, da, da. So it's like you have to make a conscious effort to get the results that you want. And it can happen, and you have to know that it can happen. I think a lot of people don't believe that it can happen because they don't see results right
Mm-hmm.
away. So if I could, give anybody advice, I always say, map out a plan and stick to it, because if you don't, you're going to fall off, and then you're not going to see any results. If you stay on that, if you get, whether you get a coach or whether you get somebody who's, expertise in it, just get some sort of advice. So along the way, that what you have is a structure, it's from somebody who knows what they're doing. And if you follow that, you're going to, it's called trust the process.
Absolutely.
That's what that's called.
Absolutely. And I mean, you hit it really right on the nail. And now one of the big myths and stereotypes that I love to bust on this show, especially when we have women on the show, is that it's gotten better the last like 5 years or so because of Instagram. But there are still so many women that believe if they touch one weight, they're just going to hulk out and become like Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson overnight. I mean, I always say to that, if you have, if that ever happens to you, I will pay you to train me. So, because I need to know your secret. But I mean, I bet you've probably heard that a few times. What is your main response to that?
Um, I have no plans, to get that big,
Yeah.
but I'm not against it either for the people who want to get that big. Um, I would just say, for the people who want to get that big, just make sure you are, talking with people or being coached by people, however their approach is. Make sure you talk to your doctors, because health is the most important. Like the reason why I do this is because of my health.
Mm-hmm.
It would defeat the purpose if I want to go and just get jacked up
Mm-hmm.
real quick and put myself at risk.
Mm-hmm.
With the heart conditions and everything else that
Yep.
comes with that. So I would just say, consider all the aspects before getting into it. Like, become more knowledgeable about everything.
Well, and what would you say to the people that come up to you and think that, the average Joe that thinks that if she touches a weight, then that they're just going to hulk out? What would you say to that then?
It takes time.
Absolutely.
It really takes time, regardless of the supplements you take. You still, like, if you take supplements, you still have to put in the work to get those muscles. So supplements it's going to take time.
Mm-hmm.
Like building muscle is not an overnight process.
Absolutely. And I got to say, everyone, just look at her. Does she look like Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson or Hulk Hogan or any of those guys? And she's been working out for that long. I mean, it's like, it's such a big, I always like to tell the story of when I was in college. One of my good friends, she would always say like, "Ryan, you're working out a lot. I kind of want to go to the gym with you. It would seem like it would be fun, but I'm afraid of getting too big." And then finally one night I just told her, I said, "Look, the amount of weight that you carry in your purse weighs more than a lot of the dumbbells in the gym, and you are not gaining any muscle from lugging that thing around all the time." And that sort of finally convinced her. And it's one of those things where you just got to get in the gym and just experience that and just realize that, that's couldn't be more from the truth. So now, like you said, you just competed in Miami a couple of weeks ago, but do you have any plans on when your next competition is going to be, or are you just taking it easy right now and just resting and recuperating?
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna do another national show pretty soon. Probably shooting for Chicago again. I'm just gonna keep hammering out these national shows until I get my pro card. So I mean, there's no way I'm going to get it unless I, continue to go. So
Mhm.
that's the
I'm going to
plan.
give you an absolute home run right here. So, are there any sponsors that you would like to give a shout out to?
Any sponsors? The She Beverage Company. Yeah, they've been incredible to me for this whole process and very supportive. So, She Beverages, thank you so much.
All right, yeah, I'll leave a link down below for them. And is there anyone else that you would like to give a shout out to personally before we wrap up this thing?
Yeah, absolutely. My coach has played a huge part in my progress. Coach Norm from Team NJFF. He has been, he has taken my physique to the next level. So I'm very grateful for that, and I'm looking forward to what we're going to do in these next 5 months before getting on the national stage again.
Absolutely. And again, everyone, I mean, go and follow her on Instagram. I mean, you will be inspired to get off the couch and stop eating those Twinkies just by looking at one of her photos. You'll be like, yep, okay, time to go work out now. Time's enough. And again, like, we cannot thank you enough also for coming on, because it's just such a huge inspiration talking to people like you who just are able to have that healthy and fit lifestyle while also balancing having a kid. I mean, it almost makes people not want to give excuses, because I mean, it's just so inspiring. And like I say, one of the big reasons I love to have, especially women on this show who work out and who are in shape, is because a lot of people, when you do get a little bit of muscle and when you do get, more in shape, a lot of people tend to not look at the person who's on the inside then, as opposed to the exterior, what you look like. They don't realize that there's an actual human being down underneath all that. That's just a normal person that just works out. I mean, a lot of people are just look at the muscles or they look at the body, and then they're not able to understand that. So that's why I love having people come on here and just share their stories so that people can see, like, oh, they're not just an Instagram photo. They're an actual human being who has stories and has experiences. So again, we cannot thank you enough for coming on for that. And everyone, go and follow her, Shy by She. Let us know as soon as that gets released, so that I can, give it a shout out. And again, like I said, I wish you nothing but the best of success. And thank you so much. And is there any last bit of advice that you would like to give, especially moms out there who just like to say, like, oh, I don't have enough time, or I don't have enough, energy? Is there any last bit of advice that you would like to give, especially the moms out there?
Yeah, time is what you make it. We all have the same 24 hours in a day. So it's all about prioritizing and making it worth your while as far as what you have set for goals. So I would just say set goals, set, time restrictions for certain things, and just hammer them out. Um, Whatever you put your effort into, that's what's going to grow. So, yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, I couldn't agree enough with that. And again, you guys, everyone go and follow her. Links down below. Cannot thank you enough for coming on. And this is Ryan Johnson, DD on the spot, signing out. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you, Ryan, for having me.
Absolutely.